Hello, women in tech and women in tech supporters, and welcome to the BETAIN Real Talks. My name is Carly, aka Delta.
And I am Adriana, aka Leanie, and we are your hosts and the creators of the fictional series Beta, about how two very different women, Delta and Leanie, learn to empower each other and lead in the tech industry.
And so to support the larger dialogues on women's empowerment in tech and highlight the importance of representation in both entertainment and technology, two industries that are designing our future, we decided to start a show called BETAIN Real Talks to complement the series. And we're doing this with the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. It is a talk show where women talk to women about their journey in the industry and how to empower more women to lead in tech.
This week, we will real talk with Sandy Marsico, founder and CEO of Sandstorm Design Digital Creative, and two of her tech team superstars, Amanda and Emily, about their journeys in the creative tech world and touch on hot topics like UX, one of my personal favorites, branding, and scaling business.
But before we bring on our guests, we wanted to introduce you to these two fictional characters, Delta and Leanie, from the Beta series. This was the series that was inspired by powerhouse women like our guests today. So please enjoy the trailer to Beta the series, and we'll be right back.
Oh my God. I hate my job. Just tell them that.
You got me fired.
You got me fired. You got me fired.
Are you kidding me?
That's me, Leanie. This is Delta. She was my boss.
You're good. You're good.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I think you should be an entrepreneur.
Leanie, do you know what that word means?
I know this is something you've always wanted. Now's the time. And the tech industry is all the rage right now.
80% of businesses fail within the first 18 months.
This is gonna be so exciting.
You are brilliant.
I am?
Yes.
What did I say?
I don't want you getting involved in my personal life. You know nothing about me.
I'm your friend.
We are not friends.
A flower never competes with a flower beside it. It just blooms.
What about goggles that recognize images?
Like Google goggles?
Exactly. Oh, I see why that's a problem.
I never realized that we were so much on the same page.
We're totally in the same boat.
So we're going worldwide, baby.
Delta, I was gonna show you that we could.
Hello. Hi. Nice to see you all. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're really excited for today.
Yes. Before we dive into introductions, though, we just wanted to let everyone know that if you're attending live and you have questions, please do go ahead and put those into the chat box, and we'll be addressing questions at the end.
Yes. Well, hello, Emily, Sandy, Amanda. Thank you for being here. We thought we'd let you guys do yourselves justice and pop into some introductions, if that's all right.
I'm happy to start. Hi, everybody. And you guys, thanks so much for having us today. I am Sandy Marsico. I'm the founder and CEO of Sandstorm Design. We're a digital creative agency here in Chicago, but we also have offices in Seattle, Dallas, Denver, and Charlotte. And Emily here is from Seattle. She's one of our Seattle.
Awesome.
Oh, awesome.
Anyway, how I started Sandstorm, I was actually a painting major. And when I was 24, I called my parents, told them I was going to quit my job and start this company called Sandstorm. And Sandstorm was my nickname in college. I used to storm into everyone's room to see who wanted to go out for last call. There was no way that I was going to know what was going to happen many years later, that we'd end up building this agency.
That's amazing. I got an immediate vision of you when you said Sandstorm was your nickname, because that was our football anthem in college.
Oh, it was?
Sandstorm. And so it was just always like a rally cry, like, come on, let's go.
Oh, I totally love that. You would make an awesome sandstormer. For those of you in art, you know that you only have class from 9 to 12, then 2 to 5, then 7 to 10. So you're buzzing even at 10 o'clock at night because you've just spent time in studio. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how how I got my nickname.
That's so great. And I can't wait for us to go into more detail, Sandy, into how much growth and that incredible journey from artist to big creative agency.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carly.
Yes. And Amanda.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much. We really appreciate being involved and asked to be a part of this today. I'm Amanda Heberg. I'm the VP of Business Development for Sandstorm. I've been working with Sandy and our Sandstormers for well over 3 years, although I think I've known Sandy for maybe 7 or 8 now going on. So we've known each other a long time. It's really been a really amazing journey for me. I've been in tech my entire career, so I'm just going to cap it at it's over 20 years now. I'm not going to give the full number, but we'll just be safe there at that 20-year mark. And, I've worked from small boutique development agencies and companies to big Fortune 500 companies. And so again, kind of a mixture of kind of small to big, lots of different experiences, and super excited to share that today. And, for me, really where I started is I needed a job. So I was just out of college, had thought I was going to be a lawyer. So I was thinking about going to law school and planned that, and that didn't quite pan out. So my college roommate, and she was also on the women's volleyball team with me at Lewis University. We played together. She had a job, and she was an inside sales rep at a tech place that was basically building software and CRM systems for nonprofits. And I said, well, that sounds cool. Maybe I should do that. So I went in and interviewed and got the job, and here we are. So like I said, 20 plus years later. So excited to share some of my perspectives too, and just some of my personal experiences. So again, thanks for having me.
It's awesome. Thank you for sharing, and look forward to hearing more. Yes. And Emily.
Emily Codner. I'm Senior Director of Client Delivery at Sandstorm. I've been there for over 7 years now. And before I was working at Sandstorm, I was working with Sandstorm. I had been a research analyst at an association, and we decided we needed to build a new website, and they needed a volunteer for a project manager for that website project. So I started working with Sandstorm and made the difficult transition from client to the agency side shortly thereafter, because I had been working in sociology and peace studies and conflict resolution, had no idea that I would end up on the tech side, but found my calling finally.
Yeah. I really want to dive into, have you expand on the difficult transition.
Oh,
I can imagine,
you're not supposed to do that. Yeah. we don't typically do that.
Yeah. Fascinating. I'm sure there's a lot more.
I was going to say, I could add 2 cents about Emily. Yeah. She had approached us and said, I'm ready for my next adventure. I'd really like to work here. And we had said, oh, we don't normally do that. Like we wouldn't normally work with or take, so to speak, from a client. And she was like, okay. And then I don't know if it was a couple months later, she was like, I'm like really serious. I'm on like second job interviews here. And then Emily, okay, right? Yeah, like I'm way out of here. And then we had lunch, and then that's kind of how the rest is history. But
that's so great.
This is so Emily. She knows what she wants, perseverant, right? And then just leads with facts. I'm leaving. I'm like really leaving. Second interview.
I love that. Amanda, how did you and Sandy meet?
Oh gosh, it's a story, but I'll try to keep it brief. So through some industry consultants, folks that come to both of us and said, my gosh, you need to meet. You need to connect. Mm-hmm. Sandy was, I think, again, maybe 8 years ago, was right on the cusp of needing someone to help lead some of the sales and marketing efforts. And we connected, we met in person. I remember sitting in our front conference room and a little bit of kind of fire action questions, but it really felt totally, I don't know, just like a friendship, like it just a connection. It was like, I really want to work with this person. And then again, timing kind of got in the way. I was at a company that had just gone through an acquisition. We had been acquired by the big guys, right? So I kind of needed to ride that out a little bit to sort of see where it would go. And then I did that for a couple more years, and then we kind of reconnected. We had another sort of mutual connection that said, okay, Sandy's really ready for you. I know you're really ready to go. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Sure, she's, we'll see. And I literally had already planned to take another position. And she said, let's go to lunch. I said, sure, we'll go to lunch. And I remember like high-fiving each other in that lunch, like, yeah, we could do this. This is so awesome. This is going to be great. We could build this together. Like those kinds of conversations. And I literally remember standing on the street corner on Wacker and calling my husband and saying, I'm going to do it. And he was like, really? Because you went in not thinking you were going to do it. I'm going to do it. So, and here we are years later. So it's been an amazing ride.
So great.
Well,
great.
I was going to say, here's the second half to that story. I freaking wanted to hire her 8 years ago, and timing wasn't right. So I see every no as a not yet.
Yes.
Okay. And I've got a history of not yets. And I used to just randomly send her emails, and I had no idea she wasn't getting them in her Yahoo, to her Yahoo email address, and be like, hey, just thinking of you. How's it going? And we met at a conference. She got to hear me speak. And I was like, oh, hey. And I was like, someday when you're ready, like, I wasn't even like shy about it.
Yeah.
It was more like, I'd like to work with you. You're the only one I really want to work with. And I'm basically going to sit here and wait until you're ready to work with me. Yeah.
That's such an incredible feeling, though, and such a testament to like life really is in the timing sometimes.
Well, it's like about that connection. Like so much of this is human connection. I mean, we always say like people, want to work with people. People want to buy things from people that they genuinely like. Like that is what it's really all about, is that connection. And so I was so at that point in my life where I was like, I have to be part of something bigger than me, that I can contribute, that I can have a true collaboration with, not just someone telling me you need to do this or you need to do that. Like I needed to really feel that I was just at that point in my life. So that again, it's sort of all timing too, right? It's all about the timing.
It's so funny when we look at what you guys do too. It'll be interesting to see. One, I've known Sandy for almost a decade now, and she's been one of my mentors for many, many reasons. But one of those reasons is because you, Sandy, are so brilliant at creating homes, creating cultures that really support people and bring out their individualism and really bring out their strengths. And that has always been a part of, I hope we'll have some time to talk about that, because it's a gift that I think a lot of business owners could learn how to do a little bit better.
Thank you, Carly.
Yes. Okay. Wait a second. We have so many things.
Let's dive in. Okay, so let's dive in, take it back a notch to storytelling. As creatives and artists right now, Carly and I, that's our hope with Beta, is to create a story that impacts the world, and a story that hasn't been told yet, and why it's important. So to speak to that, are there stories that any of you remember from your childhood that impacted your path? Maybe there are, maybe there aren't, but if so, what are they?
Sandy?
I'd say I'll start, tell you a little bit about what it was like to be a Sandy child. So my dad was an entrepreneur. Okay. So at dinner, he would have my brother and I have to say before dinner, I am a leader. I am not a follower, right? I love childhood stories, right? And this occurred to me. I have a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old. I should probably be doing this because maybe it worked, right? But I can remember sitting there, and I'm even a teenager being like, I am a leader. I am not a follower. Right?
Dad, can I just have my pizza?
Explain so much, right?
That's so good.
And can I tell you the second half to that? We also had to listen to him say, you never want to work for somebody. You only want to work for yourself. And I was sitting there being like, heck no. Like you're crazy. And when I got my first job out of college, I remember eating dinner with him and being like, dude, you are so wrong. Do you know how easy it is to work for somebody else? This is all I'm going to do. There's no way I'm going to do this. Okay, seriously, 2 years later, I quit my job and started a company. So I don't know, that's childhood. But if we're talking about storytelling in movies, so I quit my job. I want to start this company, Sandstorm. and I see the movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow.
Love that movie. Yes.
That's when I decided I'm chopping my hair off too. So I took it all to like just a little inch at the top, right? And was like, yeah. And I just gotten my black belt in Taekwondo. Yeah. And I got this short hair. Yeah. Right. And then I'm in a Taekwondo tournament and I bust up all the metacarpals in my hand and now I can't do my hair. So I got this a piece of hair now that I got cut. Can't do anything with it. And that's my childhood.
I hope there's great picture evidence.
I was just going to say that, Sandy. I have not seen this picture yet, but I think
in the short hair,
to make its way into Are You Rocks or something like that. That needs to happen.
It's really short. It's Gwyneth Paltrow Sliding Door short.
Yeah. It was a pretty great haircut. It really was. So I can see how it would make it. Actually, I think she, to a certain degree, influenced my shortcut too.
Right.
So,
and it was a very like, you got this girl power.
Yeah, she was starting her business.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
Yep.
Totally.
So Gwyneth Paltrow, when you hear this, it was because of you.
My hair did this for a year.
What an icon.
Yes. Great. Amanda, do you have some childhood stories to share?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was literally sitting last night watching, I think it was on HBO with my husband last night, this Go-Go's documentary. It just made me like go, whoa, I just remember being a kid. And so for me, it's not as much about stories. I was a huge music person, like grew up with, the record players with the, put on my earphones and my, my parents' living room basically. And like, that's all we did was just play records and records. But as a kid, I remember just loving that Vacation album where they're on the skis, on the cover and literally listening to that till it just, I don't know if it still plays. Like, I'm not quite sure. I think my parents found the original album that we have. I don't know if I've played it, but long story short, like that documentary just brought it all back for me last night. I was like, oh my God, like talk about girl power, empowerment. I think they are the only all women band that wrote their own songs. They were the first to hit #1. So like, just so cool. Right. I was like, yeah, like girl power. Yes.
Yeah.
Like just so cool. It just brought me back to how much like that, I even at that time, I'm sure didn't quite grasp what that meant, but it just was sure for freaking cool, right? Like these girls were doing it, they were rocking it. And so stuff like that, like just always kind of speaks to me in terms of my childhood. And it also made me think too, like I have an 8-year-old daughter. And so, of course, this is such an important time, right? Like you're sort of creating that foundation for her of what she's going to be in life and what that's going to look like. So I've been reading her this book that my mom gave to her called She Persisted. It's actually written by Chelsea Clinton. And it showcases like the 13 very important women in history and all that stuff, everything from Harriet Tubman to Oprah, but like just that kind of stuff just speaks to me. Definitely, I have a mom who, I wouldn't want to say crazy liberal, but just a little liberal, really wants us to all do the things that, we set out to do and be successful and chase our dreams kind of thing. So anyway, I just kind of thought about it from myself, but also thinking about it from my daughter's perspective too. Like, what are we teaching her? What are we sharing with her through stories, because she's so spongy right now.
So spongy.
Yeah. So amazing.
Well, and music is such an impactful way of storytelling also. I mean, how many people I feel like I know so many people that always say, oh, this song takes me back. It defined my life during that phase. I do remember a couple albums that my dad chucked out the window and he was like, you are not to be listening to this.
May have had a few of those too.
Yeah.
I think Olivia Newton-John, Let's Get Physical. That was okay. So like, that was allowed, but
Oh my God, those 80s exercise videos.
So good.
Amazing. Great. And Emily, what stories have you got?
Well, it's funny. You were just talking about this. She Persisted. I read that with my daughter too, with Nora. And the funny thing though, we were reading it and she's like, I think Eli needs to hear these stories a little bit more. Her big brother. Like, that is an excellent point. He's who I should be innovating with this with. But I've been thinking about this, and I think that I mean a lot of these stories are really what drives my identity. Like, I was thinking about when I was a toddler, it was She-Ra. super empowering. Babysitter's Club through most of the formative years. And the movie that I probably watched more times than any other movie, and I feel like is more part of pop culture than probably is Baby Boom, Diane Keaton. Does this ring a bell with anybody?
Yeah.
I probably watched it as a child. Like, I don't know why I was watching that, but that's
Great
certainly
The classics, yeah.
And also Designing Women, of course. Julia Sugar Baker as a spirit animal.
Good call.
Yeah.
Man, what a good it's making me I gotta go back and rewatch some classics.
I was thinking about I'm like, oh, this has totally driven my future. I had no idea, but like that would sum me up, I think.
It's funny how you say that in that way. It's one of the things that we look at when we talk about entertainment stories, because we oftentimes think about our real life, the moments of our life that impacted us. But entertainment impacts so much of our cultural context. And so we're not always super aware of it, but it's all the subconscious seeds that are being planted.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to see what comes up. And for a lot of women, it is stories about women. And for the most part, especially as we kind of go back, we don't have a ton of them. It's like, here's the short list.
Well, it's interesting too, because we always talk about how stories reflect our culture and like what's happening now versus thinking about it in that they're actually shaping future generations also. So it's super interesting.
And so this is, I don't know why I feel like I have to prepare for this, but we've met with so many brilliant minds in the tech industry, and I'm so interested in having the conversation with you guys today too about where it crosses over into the creative, and just kind of, I would love to hear about your journey. I know, Sandy, for you in particular, when you took a very sharp turn early on to go to pay attention to the tech route, just kind of what that journey was and how tech has influenced your perspective on the creative side.
Right. Happy to share. So I started on the design side. So I was a painter, fine artist, creative, who just had a love for technology. So here I am, 24 years old, and I bought a book on HTML and taught myself HTML so I could build myself a website for the company, as well as so I could start selling websites to companies. And I read an article on what's the difference between sales and marketing. And it said, sales, you pick up the phone and have to call somebody. Marketing, they call you. And I was like, bingo, I got to figure out how to have people call me. So I was like, okay, how could I use the web, right? So we're talking, I started Sandstorm in 1998. So we've got a couple decades here. And I started teaching myself search engine optimization. So it was this love for first HTML. I still remember the first website and animated GIF I made was a pickle that came and a hamburger ate it, a little bit like Pac-Man. And I was like, yes, I got it to work. So I started teaching myself search engine optimization, and I was just curious, like, will this actually work? And within 24 hours of launching a new site, because I had to pull it out of Flash at the time, launching a new site, optimizing it for search, I got my first lead, my first phone call. Wow. And I was like, whoa, this totally works. And that company, I'll give them a little shout out, was Career Builder.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
and
awesome.
Emily's nodding because we had Career Builder for so long, right?
Wow.
Over a decade. They were instrumental in me believing in tech and believing in search engine optimization, believing in the web world. And we did user experience work for them, usability testing work for them. We built, I can't, countless. And Emily's like, because she was managing a lot of that work. We were the first agency to do all the emails they used to send out before they brought it in-house, right? So we grew with them from a technology basis. And that's all it really takes is one person to kind of believe in you. And the beauty of the web and the beauty of technology is you are your image, right? So you create who you are to the world. And that was even before ad spends where that would pump you up in the search engines. It was just all straight grit. You had to grit. And the bigger agencies just didn't at the time because they weren't going to bother with that. So I still have friends to this day where I competed with them in the early 2000s. And that's how we know each other. And we're like buddies now because that was that was the big fight because we're competitive and we want to get to number one and things like that. But we're creative, like creative falls and blends into technology. You have to be creative to solve technology problems.
Definitely.
You have to be creative to be able to look up and out at what other companies are doing, not just in your space, but outside your space. And that's a big component to what we do at Sandstorm, because we have a full web development team, full user experience. We have designers, writers, strategists, project managers, data analysts, the whole bit. But it all stems from having an idea and then leveraging what exists out there. And quite frankly, digital and technology, if you've got the grit, is a tool that can take you really, really far. So thank you, Google, for building my business. For when they're watching.
Well, I imagine too, especially in your company and in your space, that you're always looking to be like, what's the next cutting edge thing? Like what's nobody else thinking about, and how do you do that first and better?
Yeah. That's exactly conversations we're having now, particularly in the midst of COVID. Where are changes occurring and where can we pivot, and where do we see our talents making a huge difference? And one pivot that we've been exploring and having conversations with is, how do we take the museum experience into now a digital experience, because museums are no longer open. They can't have school field trips. None of that exists, which were big revenue drivers, but we could build immersive experiences now.
Yeah.
So globally, these amazing museums could actually share to the world. And that's a technology pivot using creative resources.
Hold on. Really is that what you're working on right now?
We are having conversations about that. Yes, we are.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
It's creative, it's tech, it's storytelling, it's leveraging what exists out there and pivoting when businesses have to change.
Oh,
yeah,
so
that's
cool,
really cool.
Yeah. And then Amanda, so I'm just, because all of you have different backgrounds too, and I'm curious as to kind of some of these crossovers. For you, moving from tech like CRM, kind of selling SaaS, right, into digital, into creative services, what has that transition been like? Is it different? Do you like, just from a cultural perspective?
So much sexier, let me tell you. So much sexier. Way hotter, way cooler to be talking about, Because that's the thing, like at a certain point, those types of systems, whether it's CRMs or add-on components to that, and even to a certain extent, content management systems can become a bit commoditized in a way, right? So everyone thinks they could do it faster, quicker, cheaper, overseas, sort of, you name it, right? So how can you be different, right? How do you tackle problems differently? What are you known for? And why, again, should an organization partner with you? Like, what's your why? So that was what was a real big shift for me, I would say, over the last handful of years, is really not just implementing a system or an application and, kind of going through that process, but more about what is the research telling us, right? Like really doing the work to be able to understand what the needs of a user is. How do we create those experiences with them and for them? And really kind of, again, that marriage of digital, creative, UX, and tech. Like that's what was so exciting for me being a part of Sandstorm, because we were really doing it.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't just saying it. And I'll tell you, we talked to so many people that either come into Sandstorm and say, oh, wow, you guys have a usability lab? Like, you're really doing this, huh? Like they're almost surprised that that is the case, but it's true. And so that's what I mean. Like, it's just has really allowed for us to, bring different sort of sets of tools to the table versus just, you look like the three other guys I'm talking to down the street that do similar things, right? It just really allows for us to not just differentiate, but really provide impactful value to whatever it is that we're doing. Because again, we're typically looking at research. We're looking at it from the lens of the user. We're building these experiences that, again, aren't just let me turn on a widget, put that on, put that off kind of thing. So It's been really an amazing sort of shift for just me personally, certainly being a part of Sandstorm.
Definitely. And the biz dev perspective, because it's like you're involved in the solutioning now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I'm like a solution architect without the
Yeah.
tech.
Yes.
That's so great.
Yes.
Like, and that's an interesting
exactly.
too. Like, we could go on about that for days, because sort of who I am, right, is a little non-traditional in that role. So anyway.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. And Emily, you mentioned peace studies and where you were before.
Yeah.
So
It's been a
what?
journey.
Yes, I mean, aside from Sandy's fantastic culture and who she is as a leader, what was this hop for you into the tech and the creative space?
Yeah. So I mean, my studies were in sociology, so a lot of like research and peace studies and conflict resolution. I was in international affairs master's program, and so between conflict resolution, research, and organization. Oh, and I was a professional organizer for a while. Like I helped people with closets. So those are my.
If you lived in Chicago, you would be here. Just so you'd be in my home.
Fulfilling work, because you get to go into a space and leave and it feels better. But so with those like three, the research, the organizing, and the conflict resolution, that was you're talking about creativity, and I always my brother was the artist in the family, so that was not my domain. I was not supposed to work on art. So like when you say creativity, I always think art, but when it comes to creativity, it's the problem solving. And I love the connection to research, where I remember when Sandstorm was first pitching to the company that I was at, and they were talking about how they come up with the right organization, and like, oh, we don't just fight about it internally and go through a few meetings, like be spinning on these topics forever. Like, oh, what if we just ask the people who are going to use it how they would organize it? That makes so much sense. So that like marrying of my three passions, of the research and of the resolving conflict and of the organization part of it. I became a project manager for websites, and it brought them all together. So
I think that is an awesome segue into, I mean, I feel like I could question you guys about Sandstorm all day, because I think in my next life, my next job is going to be a personal, like going through companies' websites and telling them why their UX is bad. That's like somewhere in my next life. But talking about culture, as Amanda, you talked about going from small to big or big to small, and Emily, you talking about transitioning and how different it was at Sandstorm, and Sandy, what you've created. Can any of you speak to the differences that you've experienced? You know, Sandy, you were very young founding Sandstorm, which is incredible, by the way. When I read that, I was like, man, what should I start right now that I can build in the next 20 years? Hopefully that's beta, but hopefully we're doing that. But can any of you speak to the challenges or pros or cons of the cultures that you came up through, and if it was more alpha or more beta, and what experiences you had in those different types of culture and environment?
I can speak to that. I remember when I first started at Sandstorm, we have a monthly meeting called the UROC, where we basically give compliments to one another. We thank each other for what they've done, and we take time out of our day to do that, which is hilarious, because I've definitely worked at other places where we had meetings to do the opposite of that. And
here's where you suck.
there are different cultures, right, and different things that you make time for, and that you give space for, and that you're intentional about. So something I love about the culture at Sandstorm, and that you get at a smaller organization and with good leadership. But I've worked at organizations and companies that have 15,000 people in them, and worked at places that were smaller. But the values of the leadership and the size really matter, I think, in finding a good fit.
And would you say from a?
I think for me too. Again,
sorry. Yes, go ahead. No, please go.
No, go ahead.
Go, Amanda.
Ready, go. No, I think for me too, again, being on both sides of it, right? Sort of more boutique-y in nature, smaller, scrappier. We always like to say that, I think we're smarter, because you just have to be, just based on what you've got to get done. But in that culture, I think I've had a lot of good experiences working amongst people who gave me an opportunity to have a voice, to be heard. I was just joking about that with with my husband today. Like I come up with all the creative ideas for the jobs we're going to do at home and all the, the new things we're going to do, and he just executes them, right? But sometimes it needs to be heard, right? So there's that. But certainly just creating and really fostering that environment where, there isn't a wrong answer. There's opportunities to Emily's point, to get some pats on the back and, and really working in, sort of a sense of positivity is so important. And I think, again, some of it is size too, but it certainly is about the people that you're working with who are kind of building you up. And on, the reverse, I've worked for very, very large, corporations where I knew this is not the right fit for me, right? It served a purpose and taught me a tremendous amount, but I knew that wasn't where I wanted to be long-term. And that's okay too, right? I did work amongst some really amazing, talented people, some strong personalities, a lot of alpha going on in that kind of an environment. But I think, it's so much, again, about sort of what is your personal fit, where do you thrive, and who do you thrive with? And so I've certainly been fortunate, even in some of those kind of bigger, types of environments, being surrounded by really good people who had my back, people who wanted me genuinely to succeed, who even, again, when things are challenging, continued to build me up. So, it definitely depends, and size does have a part of that, but it is also just about the people that you surround yourself with. Because even, again, in instances where maybe it isn't the right fit long-term, working with those powerful people who continue to build you up can be really, really amazing.
Great. And Sandy, I know you sent over for alpha and the alpha beta, but of course the one thing that I didn't put in the notes was you run mostly beta.
She's some alpha too, though.
Oh, she definitely is. But the culture. So I would love if you just want to speak to kind of your balance between these two and how you run the company. And I know you've done a lot of work on kind of finding the right balance between these two energies.
I would say that it's a constant evolution, and you can't ever stop. It's not something culture is not something that's just done, because it's alive and it's ever changing. And as you hire in new people, it's kind of like you're making a big batch of chili, right? Like as people come and go, it kind of shifts and changes. And one of the pros and cons of starting a company at a young age is that I didn't really have all that much experience. So I just kept thinking, what kind of company would I want? And why don't people give birthdays off for, a holiday, so to speak? So I gave everyone their birthday off, and still do today. Like, why don't you bring in food and feed people? Why can't you do, we do 2 paid volunteer days, right? And I remember my dad, he's also an entrepreneur, being like, why are you doing all of this? I was like, because I can. And I just keep thinking, like, is this what I would like? And through COVID, that was absolutely a challenge, and still is a challenge today. But in the beginning, none of us knew what was going on. And I remember, I thought I was thinking so big when I said, okay, we're going to close the office. We're not going to take it day by day. We're going to take it week by week. That first week, I was like, yeah, okay, we're going to take it month by month, right? But it's about continuing to communicate, even like where your head is at. Because life is hard, right? There's lots of change that's going on, but the filter I always use is, would I like it? Is this something that I would like? And the reality is, I also practice what I preach. When we built out and expanded the office space, we did research with our employees. What is it that you want? That's how we got actually Hogwarts Library. It's a dark, dark, dark room with no one's allowed to talk, and it's got dark walls and it's insulated. Why? Because I had a certain set of the population, developers, that maybe wanted to be working in the dark and by themselves where no one was going to speak. But they also wanted a chef's kitchen because people wanted to bake cookies and they wanted to scramble eggs. So we had breakfast bars and, like things like that. So the same practice around user experience principles you can apply to your culture and your company. You just have to ask the employees what it is that's important to them and find the right questions to ask.
So
I love
great.
that. I know.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like it should be on a shirt, like UX, it's alive, or culture, it's alive.
And if you can speak to, because what you created at Sandstorm and what you all contribute and make into a thing. But Sandy, coming from, I know your other, being exposed to so many other different businesses and how they run and what they think a culture should be, or what permissions to give employees, just to speak a little bit to the difference between how the choices that you made, but also kind of where that maybe ran in what you see more globally, in your surroundings with other leaders.
Right. So I'm a big believer, thank you, Carly, for that. I don't really have the answer. I don't really know right out of the gate, right? So when I come into any kind of what we were talking a little bit about, like peer-to-peer groups, so I meet with a lot of different CEOs. Right now I have one that are all agency owners. I have one that is all women, right? Like different peer groups, one that is all tech. So we're all tech leaders and we share ideas. And I always come to the table with, well, why not? As opposed to like, why can't we do this? As opposed to that's not the way like other companies do it. So what I've definitely seen is that if it's a multi-generational company or run by someone multi-generational, they tend to adapt what their family member ahead of them did. And it's a little bit of a harder shift than when you have the entrepreneur that started something from nothing. So I think it all depends on what historical information and baggage that you have with you, right? And I could even say now, having 20 years experience, I have my own now history that takes with me. And I feel like we're in a really good spot to say, okay, what do we do to reinvent? How do we reinvent the U-Rock? We've been doing that for 15, 20 years. How do we reinvent what is the next super secret Sandstorm event because we're not meeting together like that? Or what does workspace mean? That's my big question that I've been pondering. I don't know that going to work means you have the same desk in the same spot anymore. I think work is going to be a collaboration space. I think work is going to be where we're choosing to come because we're meeting, whether it's with a client or with one another, not that we're coming every day because we've got an assigned desk like we had as a kid. So I'm exploring what that looks like, and that will impact our culture. But again, it's because I'm talking to my people to say, what is it that you want? What works for you? And I hire adults. So there's a philosophy. You don't have to ask for time off. Like, just let people know. Be courteous. Take care of your own work. This isn't that kind of environment.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you can perform and do your job, you shouldn't have to babysit, and giving you that freedom, hopefully in return, brings on a mutual respect.
Right. And COVID's really proved this out. And not that our culture was really that way to begin with. Fortunately for us, we were really kind of set to go once this happened because we had folks like Emily that moved to different parts of the country, and we wanted to hold on to them because they were really great people, right? And they were awesome. So, for us, it was like, okay, we already worked in that manner culture, right? Because we created that culture that there's trust, right? You're working amongst peers. There isn't some insane hierarchy in terms of getting things done or approvals or what have you, right? Very sort of flat, but that's just a natural thing. And that's just the way we come. And, but we know what we got to get done. And again, the COVID obviously has created, a lot of challenges, but has certainly created some opportunities for us too, to kind of rethink who we are and how we work amongst ourselves, but also how we engage with our clients as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great. You guys got a head start on that. I know a lot of companies for a long time. I was like, go virtual. And like, we can't. And I'm like, yes, you can. They don't do it. And then all of a sudden you're just slammed. And it's like, of course you can. You can figure it out.
Right.
But it's really hard to figure it out when fires are going off all over the place and you got to do it in a week.
Right.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Let's see.
Is Sandstorm what's your ratio of men to women in the industry that you find yourself working with most of the time, clients, and on your side, but also within your company? And do you feel like that has impacted your culture or made it better, worse, harder, easier?
So if you're looking at like employees in general, total employees, we're 50-50. So we're a mix of male, female. If you look at the executive leadership team, we're all female until last October when we did an acquisition. It was very intentional that we needed diversity, right? So we acquired an agency with a white man, and that one of those rare times that the white man added to our diversity of our executive team.
I think that's a great thing to hear. It's good to see it from, full circle, all sides. So
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's so funny, though. That is a statement that we do not hear.
Yep.
And do you find, generally, does anyone have any, opinions or just when it comes to working with women, finding it to be more on the individual level or easier that women work, lead, create differently? Or do you think it's just more everybody's got their thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the individual more so than anything else. Like I'll tell you, I've worked with some really amazing, strong-willed men in my life who, like I said before, had my back, wanted me to succeed, supported me, lifted me up, will to this day find opportunities for me and are amazing people that I'd work for again. And then I've worked for some women who it's just another day crazy, right? So it's there's sort of no rhyme or reason. It's very much, I think, individualized to those experiences. And to I think Sandy's point too, the individual we're talking about that came over in the acquisition, he's amazing, right? He just immediately adds to our value and is supportive of us all. And again, not loudest voice in the room, a true collaborator, willing to jump into a pitch or some sort of client meeting if needed, just because perhaps maybe we do need some diversity. Maybe we need to think about that in terms of how we project and present ourselves. So I think it's very much individual for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We need all of our voices, turns out.
Well, and I would say, I see myself as a CEO first. I'm a CEO and a small business owner who happens to be a woman. So I would actually say the first probably 10 years, I was just so heads on building. It wasn't until we actually got bigger that I started paying attention. And also the media and the world started shifting and changing and things. But I still do see myself as a CEO first. So I'm just throwing that out there.
But have you found in the, CEO first, but being a woman, does it ever come to your attention in a sort of, just making things a little bit more challenging or challenging your leadership in a different way, different set of rules?
Well, here's what I'm going to share. There's a perception out there. So men have been doing deals with men since the beginning of time. And I know Amanda knows where I'm going with this because I'm on my little soapbox, okay? They have a lot of experience passing deals with one another and getting deals done and handing business here, handing business there. Women, we just started in the 1960s. We are so far behind on just handing over deals or opportunities to one another. And that's what we need. We just need more opportunities. We have to fight for every single win. And I can count in 20 years on my hand how many times someone called me up and said, hey, I've got something for you. And here's what we need to do. And we need to collaborate together. It could be, hey, you want to be part of this pitch with X number of other agencies, and now you've got to fight for it. But I know a lot of men think that women have that figured out already, that women are handing deals to other women just because they're women. But that's not what we're seeing, but that needs to happen. So I'm really hoping that my generation starts to do that. And I know I've been really big about how can I mentor the next generation of women? How can I open doors for them? Because that's what we really need. We need doors open. And unfortunately, sometimes women are happy to be like, I'll mentor you and give you advice. And it's like, okay, thank you. I've got lots of advice, but what I really need, right? And it's not it's not just entrepreneurs. It's not just for new business. Let's talk about job candidates, right?
Yeah.
Finding a job. I need someone to open the door and say, you need to hire this person. And let's take it past job candidates. How about private equity and raising funds? Doors saying, this is the kind of person that you need to meet. And that's where I think women in general, we haven't cracked that code yet, right?
Absolutely.
How can we genuinely open doors for one another and make a huge impact and make it easier rather than harder or having to work more? So I do know we talk a lot about it. Like, very little comes easy. So you really have to persevere. And I leave this out there. I hope that someone listening or someone that hears this can reach out to me where I can help them. I would like to open the door. I would like to be like, boom, here's this connection. This is why you need to do it, because more needs to happen this way.
And do you feel like that is a result of women being more afraid to boldly step up and ask for that, or the fear that they don't deserve it, or the competitiveness between women? What do you think that's attributed to mostly?
Amanda, do you have a thought on that or a perspective? I'd be curious.
I mean, I think there is some, and this is just sort of my personal opinion and just based on experience, but there is a little bit of this competitiveness with women in a way, like, I like you, but I don't like you that much, you know, sort of thing, like, where, yeah, I want you to do well, but I don't want you to do that much better than me. Or, you know, like, there's sort of this weird, almost competitive nature with some women, not all, but, and that they don't also want to be perceived as like, I'm giving something away, you know, like, I work hard, so sure, I'll put your name in the hat and you could work for it, you know, like, sort of that kind of perception or mentality. I think it's sort of just the unfortunate side effect of us having to really work really hard to get to where we are, you know, to claw our way through. So I think there's a little bit of that. And I don't think that's like sort of an obvious thing that may be happening, but maybe an undercurrent that we don't even necessarily sort of acknowledge ourselves.
Yeah,
and I
certainly
would say,
come up a couple other spaces that we've had conversations around. So I think to your point, it's not a conscious thing, but it's just innately in us still. We haven't conditioned it out.
Well, we haven't been taught. Right? Like, I think it's an education gap when all is said and done, because I think a lot of it's subconscious. A lot of it is like, oh, I'm doing the best I can, or I'm doing what I think is great for you, right? Look what I did. There is just an education gap. And what does it look like when you really open a door for somebody? What does it look like when you're really lifting somebody up? And that's what's, I think, missing. It's genuinely, we just don't know. So we got kind of learning it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, again, these subconscious, it's so important though that we have these conversations, that even though it's like, I don't think, I feel like for the most part, it's pretty good, but this stuff does have to come up so that we can get rid of it, and call it out and move on to the next level. And like you pointed to, Sandy, also, and we hear this not just for women, but for diversity in general. Yes. The truth of the matter is, a lot of men, especially white men, they're wonderful. Like, it's by no fault necessarily of their own, but there's an existing network. That there's been a boys' club for quite a while, and handshakes are made, and business was done a certain way, and certain genders and races and sexual have kind of been left out of those dialogues and those networks. So it just makes it way harder to get to take those baby steps, whereas when I have some of my men friends, they're like, yeah, here's the deal. Like, yeah, let me just pass you out. It's just a different culture, and we've missed out on it. Not missed out, but as you very clearly said, catching up.
Yep. And I would agree with the minorities. Yep.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, just going through this acquisition too, I think was very eye-opening for us, in particular, Sandy and myself, just again, how business is generated. Like, we're just used to, like, nose to the grind, like
hustle,
it out, hustle. Sandy knows, Emily knows, like, I'm a hustler, like I mean, you have to. And so just sort of I knew a guy that now moved on to this company, and we're chatting, and there's some great opportunity there. It's like, well, where's my gal who just went to that place? Like, what's wrong with me? So it's just been, I think all of this is good. Like, I think this is good. It's good perspective for us to see and gain. It's eye-opening. Like, I always think it's like just chipping away at that, like, rock, like we're just constantly chip. and there is progress being made for sure, but our work isn't done. You know, there's still a lot more to do.
Yeah.
Our work is not done.
Yeah. And I'll say, because the three of us all have daughters, I'm incredibly optimistic for the futures for our daughters. Like every generation is bringing more to the next generation. And I don't think at all being a woman is holding me back, nothing like that. It's just some little things that are opportunities, I guess I see it as. Opportunities for us to grow.
I like that.
You sell sunshine and rainbows,
right?
I can't believe, ladies, it's almost been an hour. It's crazy. I feel like I have 100 more questions to ask you. But I do want to make sure we do have a question from the audience, so I want to make sure we get that. Let's see. What business marketing tips would you give to creative entrepreneurs on how to market goods or services in an ever-changing digital world? Are social media ads effective?
That is a great question. So you're going to love the answer of it depends. It's mostly because it depends on what you're selling, right? So if we're talking about social media ads, that can work really great. Let's say if you're selling a concert or you're selling a consumer good or a supplement, right? So it depends on what the sale is versus if you're selling a website. It's good to have exposure, but a social media ad isn't going to do as much for us for selling a website as much as it would if we were recruiting participants for a usability study. Then it's a great use of the ad. So asking for a business marketing tip, the number one question I would say is, where are your customers at? And you need to meet them to where they're at. So if they are on social media, you have to figure out which platform they're actually on, so you're part of the conversation and that you're not marketing to them, that you're having a conversation with them. Because at the end of the day, they're kind of building your brand for you based on what they're saying now, and the consumer has more control than ever before. So the best tip is not to look at your friend's company and what they did, but to apply the filter first to say, do we have the same people we're trying to market? Is it the same kind of sale where it's a transactional quick sale, or is it a relationship sale? Because that makes a huge difference in digital marketing as well, is the type of sale that it is. And then also, what kind of exposure are you looking for, and what is the ad for? Is it for lead gen? Is it for brand awareness? Is it because you want them to watch something, see something? So understand what the end game looks like, and that'll help you build the plan moving forward.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Great guidance.
From
the marketing genius. Wonderful. And before we go ahead and close, if all of you just wanted to, if there's any words that you would like to, hello, Adria, can you help me to phrase this? I don't know why I can't find my words right now.
Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? If we have the upcoming generation watching, or people currently in the space, or people looking to make job changes, what advice would you throw out as your little snippet of feel good for today?
Go with your gut. Go with your gut. That is something I have learned and have unfortunately not listened to so many times in my life, whether that's professionally or personally. Like, be willing to take the risk by listening to your gut, right? So all of this does require, again, some risk taking, and we're all at sort of different levels of that. But, don't be scared, don't be afraid. But again, really listen to that intuition, because it's hugely valuable, especially as women. We'll often overlook it or sort of push it to the side, and, or just sort of listening to what we're being told. So that's I think, most important thing that I've certainly learned in my journey. And
great advice. Thank you.
Emily?
I mean, I think on the balance of that is, you want to do something that challenges you, that is going to teach you something new and make you grow. And you also have to figure out where that line is, where that's stressful and not making you happy and not playing to your strengths. So I've seen people in all sorts of good fits or bad fits for their position. And there's a point where you always want to be challenging and growing. And you also want to be doing what makes your heart sing, like what feels like what you're supposed to be doing. And you have to find that place for you to be professionally and personally happy, I think.
Great.
And I think mine's going to build right off that, Emily. Find what you're good at and use that gift to improve and better your community. And Carly and Adriana, you two are great examples of that, right? You're using your gift to make a difference. And that's the best advice I would give anyone.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's only been possible because women like the three of you have supported us along the way, and the gratitude we have can never be put into words. So thank you for sharing your magic, your gifts, your advice, your behind the scenes. We're grateful to hear it. I'm so lucky to have had you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you,
Thanks,
Emily.
everybody.
We'll talk to you soon, I'm sure. Get some Sandstorm updates.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I love it.
Yes. All right. Well, that wraps us up.
Yeah.
And thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Carly Marcel. I am a producer, speaker, and the founder of the Machu Teen Network, a home for change agents, empowering them to become thriving humanity leaders.
And I am Adriana Leonard. I am an actor, writer, producer for Peanut Productions, LLC. You can find everything about me at adrianaleonard.com. This has been one of our BETAIN Real Talks, part of our BETAIN campaign, which you can read more about at betatheseries.com. We'll be excited to see you next week. And thank you to our sponsors. This episode was made possible by the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship, 2112 Incubator, Project 44, Peanut Productions, and the Machu Teen Network. Bye, everyone.
Bye.